Time now for everybody's favorite guessing game, What's My Line? Brought to you by New Stopette, America's leading spray deodorant. Now with its anti-immunity factor. Poof! There goes perspiration. Now let's all play What's My Line?
Now let's meet our award-winning What's My Line panel. First, the popular columnist whose voice of Broadway appears in the New York Journal-American and papers coast to coast, Miss Dorothy Kilgallen.
You've all heard Steve say goodnight, boys, time after time on this program, and we thought that you'd like to meet one of his boys, and so tonight, as a special treat, we have Steve's youngest son, Fred Allen.
Dorothy, that gives you an idea of what Steve's other boys look like. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the only lady in television who knows whatever became of Wendy Barry, Miss Arlene Francis.
Thank you, Fred.
Well, you know you won't tell.
That's my secret. And on my left, a gentleman who gives the inside story on the Atlantic City Miss America contest in the September issue of Esquire, Mr. Bennett Cerf.
Well, now that you've seen Steve Allen's offspring, Fred, I want to tell you that the gentleman on my left has also given birth recently to a very snazzy Austin Healey sports car, which he's going to kill himself in someday, sure. Our impeccable moderator, John Charles Daly.
Thanks for the good wishes, Bennett. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to What's My Line. It's nice to have you with us because we've got Fred Allen here to play our usual games with, and we think that we can give Fred more trouble perhaps than he's counting on, together with his other colleagues on the panel when our guests come with their interesting occupations. We'll also have a famous guest challenger a bit later on, but I think it's time for Fred Allen, all the other experts, to meet our first challenger whose job has to be spotted. Would you sign in, please, sir? Daniel James Jr. Would you tell us, first of all, where you're from, Mr. James?
Pensacola, Florida.
Pensacola, Florida. Well, you're a long way from home, and I hate to make you travel some more. But over there are four members of the panel. All of them feel they should get a chance to get a close look at you. So would you walk over that way for me, please?
You're a big junior, Mr. James.
James.
Hello, Mr. James.
All right, now, Mr. James, over here, if you will, and sit down next to me. The panel gets one free guess. They've had a look at you, can see your handwriting, heard you speak, and we always begin our free guesses with Miss Dorothy Kilgallen.
I think he's an intern at the Pensacola Hospital.
An intern, Mr. Allen.
I think that Mr. James is a vice president in charge of pistachios with a chock full of nuts people.
Miss Francis.
I think that Mr. James is a physical education instructor.
Mr. Cerf.
I think Mr. James has something to do with the naval station down in Pensacola.
I'm afraid nobody has it right. We'll let our viewers have a further look at Mr. Daniel James of Pensacola, Florida. At the same time, we'll tell them what his line is. All right, Mr. James, the panel has to dig. You know how we score this thing? If you give them a no answer, I flip a card. When we flip 10 cards, you won.
Yes.
Okay?
Right.
Good deal. Mr. James is salaried. With that, let's begin the general questioning with Arlene Francis.
Do you work for a profit-making organization, Mr. James?
No.
One down and 9 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Mr. James, does that magnificent physique of yours stand you in good stead in what you do?
Yes.
Do you work for some kind of government?
Yes.
Was I anywhere near the right track when I guessed the Navy? Anywhere within
No.
fair range? No?
No, the Navy is not right. Nothing to do with the Navy. 2 down and 8 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Well, is the government branch that you work for national? Is it the
Yes.
federal government?
Yes.
Is it the executive branch that you work for?
Yes.
Do you wear anything that's different from what you're now wearing when you're in pursuit of your duties?
Yes.
Would it be termed a uniform?
Yes.
Do you work out of doors at all?
Yes.
Do you have anything to do with some natural phenomenon or park or playground or anything that, well, you know. Do you have anything to do with anything?
No.
No.
I'm really glad.
3 down and 7 to go, Mr. Allen.
Well, if you don't have anything to do with anything, Mr. James, you must be more or less inactive in government service.
No, Fred, we don't want to mislead you. It doesn't have anything to do with the parks or a natural phenomenon.
Oh, I was inclined to think that it took in everything, inactivity at its peak. But tell me, do you wear a uniform when you function?
Yes.
You do. Are you in close proximity to some executive building there or governmental building?
Well, I would say that, and I think Mr. James might agree, that it's reasonable to suspect that he might be in some proximity to property, improved or otherwise, owned by the federal government, would you say?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, Mr. James. Mr. James, this is your first appearance on this show, isn't it?
Yes.
And this is my first appearance on this show. And we can save an awful lot of time if you just tell me what you do. I pass.
You pass.
I sure do.
Miss Francis.
Are you associated with any branch of the armed services?
Yes.
Would it be the Army?
No.
4 down and 6 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Well, that gives me a rough idea that we may be circling around the Air Force.
Right.
You have
Yes.
something to do with the Air Force. Wasn't I a fool? I should have included that immediately. You wear a uniform. Is it the uniform of an enlisted man or officer in the Air Force?
Yes, it is the uniform of an enlisted
No,
man.
no, 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 no. That's it. Doing fine. Just doing it. Yes, it
Now,
is.
I have to guess. Well, judging by your intelligent approach, I hope you're an officer. Are you?
Yes.
Well, you're an officer in the Air Force.
Well, there are lots of officers in the Air Force, but now, this is true, you know, but
What do
does
you want
Mr.
now?
James
Do you want to know what officer he is?
Yeah, I even go so far as to tell you that this is Major James. Now, what does he do?
Have you got anything to do... do you ever leave the ground in your job?
Yes.
Is that a regular part of your job?
Yes.
Do you then pilot some kind of craft?
Yes.
I
Well,
think that's Bennett. That's
Is it
about
jet?
as
Is
far
it a
as
jet? Or,
Jet is right. Take that time. Actually, to get the record straight, Major James is the commander of the 437th Fighter Interceptor Squadron that's based up here at Otis Field, right? And, by the way, he flew 101 combat missions in Korea. And I just hope that this wasn't as tough as that. Now, let's flip some cards. Thanks very much, Major. Glad to have you in. Well, panel, you made a very good beginning tonight, aided and abetted by Fred Allen, sitting there charging up and down the place.